felt pressure to be strong as a black woman in Hollywood because I kept hearing that term. Everyone kept saying, be a strong black woman, strong black woman. Then I realized that's a myth.
Let's switch gears a little bit to the pressures that creatives and entrepreneurs have. And this triggered from Taraji P. Henson. She was talking about her journey. I'm not going to say struggle. Her journey with depression and anxiety, and the pressure of her being the typical strong black woman. And I'll let you guys hear it.
I felt pressure to be strong as a black woman in Hollywood because I kept hearing that term. Everyone kept saying, be a strong black woman, strong black woman. Then I realized that's a myth. It means that I'm some superhuman in some kind of way where nothing affects me, and that is so far from the truth. Sometimes I don't want to be strong. Sometimes the weight is just too much, and to put on that facade like you're strong all the time, that's exactly what it is, a facade. That's whack. You have to be human, and human means you're vulnerable, and human means you're layered.
So let's talk about the pressures, right? From your side, what is especially as an entrepreneur, especially as a minority entrepreneur, what are some of the pressures that you have felt, right, when it comes to your journey?
Yeah, I think the first one that comes to mind is that strong people don't ask or need help. Right, that's a big one. It's like this idea of, if you're strong, you identify as strong. First off, you need to be strong to be successful. Mm-hmm. And when you're strong and you're successful, you did it all by yourself. You don't ask for help. You don't need help. You don't need anyone to come and step in and give you a pat on the back or see how you're feeling or do just a check-in, almost the maintenance work. It doesn't happen. You're just on go mode all the time. So I think that's definitely one of a myth that I bought into for quite a long time, where it was rooted in insecurity, quite honestly, or lack of confidence. Because when you think about it, when you identify as being strong, especially if you didn't build the strength, but you just had to be strong because strong was the only option you had. It's like you survive. The only way to survive is to be strong, coming from just a specific type of upbringing or a tough childhood. You have to be strong to survive. So it's a survival tactic. It's one thing to go to the gym and you do 5 pounds and then 7.5, then you get a little stronger, you go to 12 and then eventually 25. Okay, that's strength. You accumulated strength over time through training and experience, and you got to strong. It's one thing to go from one day, you're just going through your childhood, then your dad passes away suddenly with a massive heart attack, and then you have to take on the weight or the responsibility of an adult, 46 or a 47-year-old adult. You didn't necessarily gain the training or preparation that it would happen that way. You knew you were getting training because that one day you had to become an adult. And you were thinking, okay, 18, 21, 25, but from 15 and 3 months to 15, 3 months in a day, it's like, right. So you had to, it's like I became strong because I had to, not because I had built the strength, I guess. So I think for a long time, to showcase anything other than that meant that I wasn't smart, at least in my mind. It's like, you're basically saying you're not smart enough or that you can't handle the responsibilities. And so how can you expose your weaknesses that way? That's the part about, I think, becoming strong to maintain your success that adds a lot of pressure. It's definitely tough to handle when you think about it like that.
That's so true. And I think from a creator standpoint, one, some of the pressures that I felt is when it comes to service, as we are creating brands and growing our audience. One, am I good enough? Right? Going into, the space that I'm in, all you saw people who talked about content or social media were people that didn't look like us, right? And I respect, and I'm really close with a lot of the people who have, paved the way from that standpoint. But no one that really looked like us in any way, shape, or form, especially not a Black and Puerto Rican lesbian female that is saying, what's poppin'? Let me tell you everything about social media and everything about tools. And that just wasn't very common. So in the way that we all create hasn't been really shown. So putting yourself out there to stand toe to toe with some of the people that's already been there and say, yo, are you strong enough? Can you last long? That was a bit of a pressure, and as well as forever showing up on social media. If one day that I don't post, what will people say? Oh, you have to create in this kind of way, or it's not going to work. Yo, this one didn't hit, so your likes and your comments are like that pressure of the social media society, the culture of that has really can take a toll on myself, because not only are you like, I'm building a brand off of it, but I'm teaching you to be consistent. So who am I to be like,
that's right. It's tough.
Yo, be consistent, show up every single day. Yo, I ain't feel like it today. I don't want to do it. Right. So in the beginning, and still some to this day of like, golly, what do we, I got to show up for y'all all the time, which once you understand the purpose is not really a problem, but we're all human. And one of the things that has helped me in that is being open to the audience of, yo, I'm supposed to go live. I don't feel like it. And let's talk about that, because I'm not in it today. I'm not in it today.
Mm-hmm.
Or when we're talking about posting on social media, yo, what old stuff can I repost right now instead of putting the pressure on myself to create when I really don't feel like it, right? And it's just one of those bad days. Shout out to all the people who are like, you got to press through it. And it's just, yeah, that's great. Shout out to y'all. This is why we create enough content. This is why we create enough messages and things like that. So in those days that we do not feel like it, we can just recycle, repurpose some of our old stuff. So the pressure from a social media standpoint is real. What people feel a lot, right? As well as myself, who teaches it about it. But the pressure of am I good enough in a field that doesn't have many people that look like us? Even and shout out to Social Media Examiner, who is trying to make it a new norm to show more of us in a space that doesn't have a lot of us, right? And for those people I'm talking about minorities. And still the percentage is small, where it was like a handful of Black and Hispanics like speaking, let alone attending, but speaking, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have that pressure of, well, you're one of the selected few. You better represent in a certain way, to where somebody came up to me was like, I so appreciate that you don't code switch. I didn't know what code switch means. I really didn't. Sounds very simple and I should know, but I didn't know what that meant. And then she broke it down to where it was like, yo, you could have been like, Will or Right. We're talking about Instagram communities, and let's talk about this. Like you're like, yo, what's poppin'? Like, y'all get that? Nah? All right then, whatever. Like, you still had that New York swag, that whole nine. And I was like, if they're going to bring us, they have to accept us.
That's
Right?
a good word. That's a good word.
But was I nervous to be like, okay, I see two people that look like us. You may not understand, because there was one time, man, I forgot where it was, but I was talking about verses in one of the trainings, and they were like, yo, we don't know what that is. Can you slow it down?
No.
Can you,
Yeah.
because it's a lot of slang, it's a lot of, so that got in my head one time. And I'm like, nah, right? Like, but I'm allowed to think like, oh snap, maybe I shouldn't do it this way. Maybe I should chill out on the references that I know and try to, now granted, there's a balance, right? Because I have to understand the audience, but those two things from a creative standpoint can drive me crazy. It really can. And I think it goes for me, one, God made me this way. And like I said, you're going to accept me if you want me in the building. That's it, right? Two, from the social media standpoint, I'm going to create systems. So what? You saw it last week. You're going to see it again. So what? You remember me posting this. Okay. Interact with it the same way you did it the last time. I have to put certain things in place to still understand that I'm serving the people, but I have to make sure I serve myself first.
Yep, 100%. I think anytime you have to walk in and you feel that you have to leave the real version of you behind, that's the hardest room to be in. It's like, because you're not comfortable in your own skin. So I have to not be myself to survive in this room that I've been invited to. It's the biggest price that we all pay. And I think, speaking of loneliness, I think that's what happened to me in COVID as well. When I moved, into my own apartment in, I think it was October of 2020. It was so weird because that was at a time when we were working with celebrities, professional athletes. It's like you're known. I think I even had, there was like an article that came out on ESPN that a friend of mine saw. I was like, oh, there's your name is mentioned in this article. It says that E.T. and this. I said, oh, yeah. So it was weird to be known or known about by a great group of people, but in your own living space, you're like, kind of weird in here.
Right.
That's a tough thing to battle through. So you're right. There is a level of self-acceptance that you just have to get through and work on. And it's a process too. I hope that as much as we're normalizing this conversation, those of you listening or watching can listen more out or hear more of the process and see that, okay, it's normal to feel this way, but don't stay there. There's some form of process that you can subscribe to or sign into to get yourself on the other side. That's the beautiful thing about it, that day in and day out, things do get better with some work. It's not a permanent thing because mentally you just don't feel your best yet or right now.